There we go. That's way more what I would be hoping for. The top portion still looks pretty good, and the bottom portion has a good amount of root growth. So I'm very happy with that. Okay, so last year I had good success rooting this Evergreen Clematis. And I took cuttings two different ways. No matter what you do, you want to have one of these nodes under soil because that's where the roots are going to come out. So you could trim this here, here, and cut off that leaf and let this stick out, trim it back down to one leaf and cut the leaf in half, something like that. And it will root out here, and then eventually you'll get new shoots come out. That's one way to do it. Another way, if you want a taller plant from the beginning, is you cut it here, and then you let a lower node stick out and let it have maybe two leaves, and then trim it off here. So the bottom node will root, and it'll give you a top node to have new growth out. So you have maybe a faster, quicker plant. I'm going to do most of them that way because it does allow you to have a few less cuttings, but I think I'm going to have faster sellable plants that way. So both will work. I had really good success rate with these, and it has beautiful white fragrant flowers, and do like this particular one. It doesn't have any flowers right now. I may give it some flowering fertilizer to encourage some flowers, but it did have flowers earlier on this year. Okay, as you can see, I have quite a few cuttings here, and as I explained, I'm just going to trim these up. Mostly, I want to do it such that one node's under, one node's above the soil, and maybe two leaves cut in half on each one. That way I can get new growth here and roots down below and new shoots. So let me show you like an example here. Let's take this one, trim it right there above that node. Go ahead and trim off that leaf, and then cut this leaf in half. Same thing here. That leaf, cut the leaf in half. And then I want to cut this at an angle somewhere below the node, like that. And there's my cutting. The roots will come out here. That'll go in the soil, and then I have new growth that should come up here eventually. And so I'm going to make them all like that, except for maybe a few where, not to waste it, if I only have one little node left, you can also do it the way where instead of doing it like this, like I explained, I could take something like this, for instance, and I could instead put that in the ground right there. So I still have a node that would go down in the soil medium. I have a leaf up top, and this will take a lot longer though. This will probably take like 2 seasons to make a plant that you can sell, because this will put out roots here, and then eventually those roots will put out some new shoots. You might get a couple new shoots here. So that's not going to be the best way. You can get those to root, but this is going to give you a faster plant. Okay, I have a clear plastic container. On the top, I have 3 holes drilled, a little bit over an inch hole, maybe 1 1/4 inches. I'm not sure what that is there, I don't remember, but I did 3 holes there. The bottom of this container has a bunch of holes, if you can see that there, so it drains well. And then in it, 50% perlite, 50% peat. So 50% peat, 50% perlite, and that worked really well for these last year. It keeps it nice and humid without being too stuffy. And then I keep this in an area that gets some light, but not direct sunlight to bake these, and I keep these misted. And so I'm just gonna dip each one of those in rooting hormone and get these in here. When you take your cuttings, if you don't stick them in right away, you need to stick them in a cup of water, but since I am pretty much processing these right away, that was not necessary. I will need to keep this misted several times a day and keep this in a spot where it gets some light, but it doesn't get direct sun to bake it. That's important. You want to give this some light to keep it alive, but not too much hot sun that just dries these out. And keeping it in a box like this that has some breathing, but keeps it pretty humid, worked really well for me last year. Okay, here are the Evergreen Clematis cuttings that I took on May 31st. And some time has passed. It's now August 5th. You can see that some of these, like this one, the top parts are completely dead. And then you can see some of these have done quite well. I feel like last year I had a little bit better success, and we'll talk about the ones I did last year a little bit later on. But let's go ahead and take some of these out and see if we have good roots on some of these. So let's go ahead and start with these ones that look dead up top. I think there's still a chance that there's some roots down below because these actually send up new shoots. So let's go ahead and take a look at these here. So interestingly enough, you can see that there's actually a root on that one. So I'll go ahead and pot it up because once again, as long as this bottom part is alive, I think there's still a shot that although the top part looks completely dead, since we do have a root right there, let me kind of do that so you can see it. Since we do actually have a root sticking out, there's a chance that could still send up a new shoot. So I'll go ahead and pot that up even though the top part looks dead. This one's also kind of hard to see, but you actually have a teeny little root that has stuck out right there. Right there. Hard to see, but there is a little root on that one too. So I'm going to try these that look dead up top, and maybe they will still make it. You know, it's always worth a shot just to stick them in a pot, give them a little bit of time. That one, this bottom part looks alive, and it looks like maybe in the future that will have roots. So I may or may not pot that one up, but we'll set that aside. That one I don't see anything. It still looks alive down there, but I don't really see any roots coming out, so I'll discard that one. This one, okay, here's a good example. So once again, this top part looks completely dead, but see all those new roots there? That's some pretty good root growth. And so I think this will send up a new shoot from this lower portion. This top part will completely die back, and then we still have a shot at that actually becoming a good plant in the future. Okay, nothing on that one. This one does have a root. See that little root right there? So that one still has a good shot. See, there's one more over here that doesn't look very good on the top portion. And once again, we do have a little root sticking out there on the bottom, so we'll give that a shot. Okay, now to these ones that actually look a lot better. I think I'm expecting a lot more roots for these guys. Okay, yes. There we go. That's way more what I would be hoping for. The top portion still looks pretty good, and the bottom portion has a good amount of root growth, so I'm very happy with that. Carefully set that aside. Okay, once again, nice amount of root growth. Very happy with that. Okay, that one once again, good amount of new root growth. Smaller one, decent amount of roots there. And this last one in the box does have the root there, the main root there with another little section coming off, so that one still has a good shot. So despite some of these looking pretty bad, only two I'm completely discarding. Now the other ones are over on the table, but only two I'm completely discarding here because they didn't really look like they were doing anything at all. These, of course, look the best, but a few of those others, even that looked kind of dead up top, I believe will still be fine. Okay, now when it comes to some of the ones I rooted last summer, you can see 3 examples here, and I have more. But something is really interesting about these. It takes a long time, at least in these larger pots, for these to produce enough roots, etc., to send up new shoots. So you can see that this one, the original leaf still looks good. And I had dug up a few of these that looked dead early in the season, and they still had a bunch of roots down below. So I believe these are just slow to send up new shoots like this one. So you can see here, the original has died back. You can see there on the left, and you can see the new shoot that has come up. And this is Evergreen Clematis, a variety called Snowdrift, Clematis armandii. And once again, here's another example of one that is still alive in the top portion, but I'm still waiting for a new growth here to shoot up. So what I'm doing this year is I'm going to see if by putting them in these smaller band pots, and I think these are like 2.5 inches or something like that, by 5 to 6 inches tall. But I'm going to see if by doing these band pots that it forces these to send up shoots earlier because they have less root space. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit of soil in these. And this is just a G&B Organics potting soil with a little bit of Espoma plant tone fertilizer mixed in. Start out with some of these that look the best. Stick that root system down in there. So my hope is that next summer these will send up shoots much earlier, and then I can pot them up into larger pots. But for now I'm going to try to grow them out in these little smaller pots here, these smaller band pots. Okay, so I got all the ones that look the best there in. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill in the ones that the top portion looks dead, but they do have a little bit of small root growth happening, so I think there's still a shot here. And once again, a lesson that I'm learning is when you start to move to like nursery scale, you have to start thinking about space, maximizing your space. So using things like this, like smaller band pots that are tall still, but allow for a lot more pots in a small space. This allows you to maximize how many plants you can grow out. Okay, there you go. I have these potted up. I'm going to go ahead and water these in really good and then keep these out of direct sunlight for a while longer. And then once again, hopefully in these smaller pots, we'll actually have the new growth come up earlier next summer. Thank you so much for watching, and do let me know in the comments section below if you have experience with propagating Evergreen Clematis, and please feel free to share any tips that you have. Well, until next time, thanks for watching.